Good day po sa inyo lahat. Kumusta naman po kayo? I assume that all of you are aspiring photographers and videographers that are willing to learn this craft further so that maybe you can use it on your personal projects or maybe start a multimedia company that caters photo and video services. So today, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to correctly convert, manage, and edit your photos and videos once they are captured and recorded using different applications. Welcome to the post-production process. As a creator, you know that there isn't one piece to the entire filmmaking process that's more vital than another. And the post-production process, if of course, incredibly integral to the final product delivered. Let's first answer the question, what is post-production? We can broadly define post-production as any work done after the initial recording or creation, but before the project itself is ready for release. At the end of the day, any and all steps in post-production should push a project closer to the finish line, the point at which it can be shared to the audience. So ano nga ba ang nangyayari sa post-production? Well, we're here to give you 7 fundamental steps in post-production. While the exact steps in post-production may vary in project to project, the major considerations in this process will generally be the same. There are a few steps before the real post-production process. So let's enumerate them. Number 1, sorting your files. Okay, so this is a demonstration on how we can sort our files before we start our post-production process. So first, we're going to create a folder here in our desktop. Okay, we're going to name it Photo and Video Seminar. Then, take in mind that if we open this folder, we have to create subfolders so that we can sort them para hindi tayo mahirapan na mahanap yung mga kailangan nating hanapin. So one is for audio. This is where you will put all of your audio files, recordings. Next, we have BGM or background music. Dito po natin ilalagay lahat ng mga musical scoring po natin. We also have exports. Exports, this is where all of your exported video files are placed para na monitor nyo po kung nakailang revisions na po kayo and kung ano doon yung pinaka-malinis at pinaka-magandang take. Then next, we have GFX or video effects. Okay, that's for graphics. Then another one for OST or original soundtrack. Dito natin ilalagay kung meron po kayong mga original soundtracks na ginawa. Next, we also have photos. Siyempre, during our shoot, we shoot our photos maybe for poster studies or gagamitin siya for graphics. Next, the most essential, which is the project file. Yan, so binubukod ko din siya na folder kasi para na ma-monitor ko kung ano yung pinaka-latest na project file ng project ko or ng film. Next, we have SFX or sound effects. This is where you will put that folder. I also like to create a folder named unsorted. So, dito natin ilalagay yung mga hindi natin na-sort na mga files. Kaya ito yung mga hindi natin kailangan na files sa tingin natin hindi natin kailangan pero eventually kakailangan din natin in the future. Then, lastly, we have videos. So, dito natin ilalagay yung mga footage na na-shoot natin. And karaniwan, meron ding subfolder to mga to. Meron siyang sequence 1, sequence 2, sequence 3, sequence 4, and so on kung how many sequences are contained in your script. Depending on the specifics of the project, it is of your best interest to keep the production in-house. This is to help you figure out how manageable your workflow is. So, here's a rundown of commonly used examples of post-production software. For video editing, we have Avid Media Composer, Adobe Premiere Pro, and Final Cut Pro. But I entirely rely on the Adobe suite, so Adobe Premiere Pro is my editing software of choice. For sound editing and mixing, I also do most of my audio work in Premiere. But if I'm working with individual audio clips, I use Adobe Audition. Pro Tools and Logic Pro are also the best alternatives out there and are also commonly used in the big screens. For color grading, I also use the Lumetric Color Panel in Adobe Premiere Pro. For visual effects and motion graphics, I use Adobe After Effects. Now that we have prepared all of the files and sorted them, and also the software that we need, it's time to dig into the real process of post-production. The first step in post-production is picture editing. or cutting the image. This is the most essential step in post-production. This is where you transform raw footage and other post-production materials into a story. It's where everything begins to come together. The goal of picture editing is to cut the footage acquired during principal photography into the visible foundation of a living, breathing movie or a television show. In this sense, you can think of picture editing as the spine and skeleton of the post-production process as a whole. A great deal of work may still be required after picture editing, but the project's story, tone, characters, and themes should become increasingly tangible as the project moves from rough cut to picture lock. Number 2, audio editing, or this is what I consider as sound design. As picture editing proceeds towards its conclusion, a project's sound design takes on a profound importance. In modern movies, high-quality audio is just as important as high-quality images. Number 3, music editing, or this is the musical score. Music is an undeniable force in movies. The power of its presence can propel entire films, while the vacuum of its well-executed absence can create pressure on its own. Needless to say, the processes of creating, licensing, adding, and subtracting music within a film or a TV show is of the utmost importance in the post-production process. After the project's picture is locked and music is set, the final and most crucial phase of audio design may begin. It is known as sound mixing. Sound mixing is a little bit like the last steps of baking a good cake without a recipe. You've already gathered the right ingredients. Now is the time you have to gather the right proportions. In other words, sound mixing is where you figure out how loud your dialogue needs to be relative to that thunderstorm deep in the background. It's where you figure out if that creepy voice on the phone needs more reverb. It's where you also figure out if you really need that deep bass. Audio mixing is where you dial in audio levels to make a movie finally sound like a movie. Okay, so this is our demonstration for sound mixing or dialogue mixing. So ito po ay isang sequence sa Stan International, isa pong entry po namin sa InCinema 2022 sa distrito po ng Tarlac City, Tarlac. And we're here to demonstrate on how we could improve the dialogue audio here in this sequence. So we'll focus the demonstration on this line.
Ewan na, iba kasi ang golf eh. It's about self-focus. It's more about outwitting yourself.
So as you can see, the levels are still very low. It's very raw. Yan yung pinaka-raw na audio na pinoproduce. This is the audio coming out from the external recorder na ginamit namin sa shoot. So we'll just apply some audio effects in Premiere. So what I would like to do first is raise the gain a little. So lagdagan natin ng plus 5 decibels.
Ewan na, iba kasi ang golf eh.
And that will make it much louder and much clearer. Then we're going to add a denoise effect para matanggal yung mga noise. So we're gonna add it in both clips.
Ewan na, iba kasi ang golf eh. It's about self-focus. It's more about outwitting yourself.
So kung mapapansin nyo, medyo muffled siya. So gagawin natin, iti-tweak natin siya. Gagawin natin siyang light noise reduction lang.
Ewan na, iba kasi ang golf eh.
And bumalik yung clarity ng... Next, we're going to apply an effect called mastering. So dito natin mas mapapalinaw pa yung kanilang mga boses. And meron akong preset dito. What I'm going to do is make room for vocals. Then I'm going to set it to retro and set it to 80%.
Ewan na, iba kasi ang golf eh.
So yun, mas clear na siya. Mas clarified yung lines ng character.
Ewan na, iba kasi ang golf eh.
And meron siyang body. Hindi katulad nung kanina na medyo muffled. So this is before.
Ewan na, iba kasi ang golf eh. It's about self-focus. It's more about outwitting yourself.
And this is after.
Ewan na, iba kasi ang golf eh. It's about self-focus. It's more about outwitting yourself.
Okay, so that's putting body to the dialogue or the audio of your character. So the clearer the audio, mas maintindihan, mas clear sa audience mo yung lesson o yung message na gusto mo may parating sa kanila. Number 5, VFX. Not all post-production material are generated during principal photography or during the time of shooting. With the increasing sophistication of post-production technology and the proliferation of digital VFX, the most critical elements of many modern movies aren't added until the very last second. Depending on the project, the application of digital VFX can run the gamut from rotoscoping an unwanted object to fully animating a central character. The process can be time-consuming and often requires a veritable army of trained professionals with highly specialized skills. As such, the VFX process often begins early on in a project's lifecycle with concept art, animation tests, and even 3D pre-visualization. Its finalization, however, is frequently one of the last completed tasks before the project's public release.
Usually, ito na balitaan ng away yata ngayon.
Bro, sa inyo nga tayo na.
Pare, bilisan mo.
Ano lang?
Malapit sa amin
Sa
yan.
inyo nga.
Sige.
Laki ng...
Number 6, color grading or making the grade. Once a project is picture locked, the process of color grading and correcting may begin. Color grading is the extension of the director and the cinematographer's initial intent in the project during pre-production. Hues are shifted and tones are tweaked until a film's images are optimized for telling a story. So this is a demonstration for the color grading process. This shot was shot on an A7 III. It was filmed in 4K and ang picture profile niya is S-Log3. This is the raw format or the picture profile na flat, as in lahat ng colors ay flat. So, mas prefer ko na mag-shoot in flat or in raw para makuha ko lahat ng mga details and lahat ng mga colors na present dun sa scene na yon. And in post ko na lang siya babawiin. Here in Lumetri Color in Premiere, may mga tinatag tayong mga LUTs na pwede nating i-apply. And meron akong number of LUTs dito na pwedeng i-apply sa clip na to. Since this was filmed in S-Log3, merong mga S-Log3 ready na mga LUTs dyan. So for example, if we apply this S-Log3 to Rec 709 LUT, so mangyayari yan, it will give that kind of image. Iko-correct niya yung image na sinut mo na raw. Okay? So that's what we're given. But I'm going to opt for the Blackmagic presets para medyo flat siya tingnan ng konti. Then we're going to tweak the contrast kasi medyo kulang pa. And we're gonna bring that to like 60%. Then yung highlights medyo blown out, so di-down natin yan para makita natin yung sky. Not so much that it will bring the negative 65. Then shadows will bring it down para magkaroon pa ng konting contrast. And you can see the image slowly going to normal. Then yung whites, a little boost lang para mag-brighten up lang image para hindi maging dull. Then syempre saturation, since nag-apply na tayo ng LUT, may saturation na siyang binibigay. But I'm gonna boost that like for 120%. Okay, so basically that's already a corrected image. But in terms of color grading, gusto kong palitan yung kulay ng green, yung pagka-green ng mga bushes and yung mga grass, pati yung trees. So, pupunta tayo sa curves panel. We're going to go to hue versus hue. So, isa-select natin yung green range. So, makikita nyo pag ina-adjust ko tong slider na to, mag-iiba lahat ng green channels. And so, mas prefer ko yung medyo, hindi masyadong green na green, pero it's there. Yung trees, gusto kong gawin ng yellow tintish a bit. Then, we're gonna boost the saturation of the sky and lessen the saturation on the greens. So, select natin yung blue range and yung green range. Para ibaba natin yung saturation ng green. And yung blue sky. Then, we're gonna mess with the RGB curves para mas ma-expose po siya ng konti. And there you go. That's our final image. So, napakalayo niya dun sa flat na image na sinut nyo. Okay, so you can see. It brings life. Color grading brings life to your footage. Lastly, we have motion graphics. What does post-production mean for motion graphic designers? Means it's time to build titles and credits. The scale and complexity of titles and credits can vary dramatically from project to project, but their inclusion is a critical component in a TV or film's identity. Before any major project is released, motion graphic designers put days, weeks, and sometimes months of painstakingly detail-oriented work into these seemingly straightforward elements. One tip that I can give you is to find and use templates or motion graphic templates during your edits. There are a lot of motion graphic templates in the internet that you can use and download so that you can start your journey in the post-production process in motion graphics. To conclude this session, trusting others to do their jobs well is a major requirement in the post-production process. Post workflow is highly collaborative and involves many different people. Your project may not require every one of these steps, and some steps may be moved depending on your project's budget, time, and other needs. This stage in filmmaking takes time, and maybe it's a little bit exhausting, but if you manage to understand the basics, it can be manageable. Sana po ay may natutunan po kayo sa pagtalakay po natin ngayon. Mag-ingat po kayong lahat. See you soon po.